The distress beacon's pulse drew Darren through the canyon like a siren's call. As a colonial surveyor, he'd investigated dozens of false alarms, wildlife interference, geological anomalies, abandoned equipment, but this signal carried urgency that made his chest tighten. The wreckage appeared beyond a ridge of black stone, smoke still rising from twisted metal scattered across the valley floor. The shuttle's design was unfamiliar, sleek curves where human vessels had hard angles, symbols etched along the hull that seemed to shimmer even in ruin. Alien. Darren's hand moved instinctively to his sidearm, protocol screaming through his mind. Contact with unknown species required military clearance. He should call it in, establish a perimeter, wait for proper authority. Then he heard the crying. Soft, hiccuping sobs came from behind a fragment of hull plating. Darren approached slowly, weapon lowered, and peered around the metal. A child stared back at him. She couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 by human standards. Small, fragile, with luminous orange skin that seemed to glow faintly in the fading light. Blonde hair, almost white, fell in tangled waves past her shoulders. Her enormous eyes, golden with flecks of amber, widened in terror as she pressed herself against the wreckage. "Hey, it's okay," Darren whispered, holstering his weapon and raising empty hands. "I'm not going to hurt you." She whimpered, clutching something to her chest, a small device, cracked and dark. Behind her lay another figure, an adult by size, unmoving beneath a section of collapsed ceiling. The temperature was dropping fast. Night on this planet brought killing frost, and the child wore only a thin uniform, already torn and stained. Her orange skin had paled to almost peach, her lips trembling. Darren made his decision. He shrugged off his thermal jacket and approached slowly, making his movements obvious and non-threatening. The girl flinched but didn't run. When he draped the jacket around her shoulders, she blinked up at him, confusion replacing some of her fear. "Come on, little one," he said gently, offering his hand. "Let's get you somewhere safe." She whimpered, clutching something to her chest, back at the fallen figure, then back at Darren. Her small hand, four-fingered and delicate, slipped into his hand. He lifted her carefully, feeling how she trembled against his chest. As he turned toward his camp, he activated his emergency beacon. Whatever protocols he'd broken, he'd break them again. Darren's shelter hummed with the portable heater's warmth as he tried to coax the child into eating. She sat wrapped in his jacket and 2 emergency blankets, the orange of her skin returning to its natural vibrancy, but she only stared at the nutrient bar he offered, golden eyes wary and exhausted. "I know it probably tastes like cardboard," he said softly, breaking off a small piece and eating it himself to show it was safe, "but it'll help you feel better." She watched him intently, head tilted. When he offered the bar again, she took it with trembling fingers and nibbled the edge. Her expression suggested his assessment had been accurate. A sound outside froze them both. Footsteps, uneven, dragging. Darren moved to the shelter's entrance, positioning himself between the sound and the child. His hand found his weapon as a silhouette appeared in the darkness. "Zara!" The voice was hoarse, desperate, speaking in that melodic alien tongue. "Zara, answer me." The child gasped. "Vera!" She tried to stand, tangled in blankets, and Darren caught her before she fell. The figure stumbled forward into the light, and Darren's breath caught. The woman was tall, athletic, with the same luminous orange skin as the child, but marked with darker amber patterns that ran like war paint across her face and exposed arms. Her blonde hair was cut short, practical, and her eyes, those same golden eyes, fixed on him with fierce intensity. Blood stained her torn uniform, and she favored her left side heavily. "Step away from her." Her words came out in accented but clear English, each syllable sharp as a blade. "Vera, no!" The child, Zara, squirmed in Darren's arms. "He saved me. He's kind." The woman's eyes narrowed, assessing him with the trained precision of a soldier.
Darren slowly released Zara, who ran to the woman and wrapped small arms around her waist. The woman winced but held the child close, never taking her eyes off Darren. "I'm Darren Reeves," he said calmly, hands visible and empty. "Colonial surveyor. I found her at the crash site. You need medical attention. I need my charge safe." But even as she spoke, Vera swayed, her grip on Zara tightening for support rather than comfort. "You're injured. Let me help." "Why?" Suspicion laced every word. "Humans don't help Kalathi. We've seen your expansion, your wars." "I don't know anything about Kalathi politics," Darren said. "I just know a child was scared and cold, and you're about to collapse. Please." Vera's jaw clenched. She looked down at Zara, who gazed up at her with pleading eyes, then back at Darren. "One wrong move," she whispered. Darren slowly released Zara, who ran to the woman and wrapped small arms around her waist. The woman winced but held the child close, never taking her eyes off Darren. Dawn broke cold and pale over the canyon, finding Vera awake despite her body's protests. She'd let the human, Darren, treat her wounds last night, mostly because remaining conscious required all her strength. 3 cracked ribs, a deep laceration across her shoulder, and a concussion that made the world tilt at irregular intervals. But she'd kept her weapon within reach. Now, she watched him with Zara through half-closed eyes, pretending to sleep while gathering intelligence. The child sat cross-legged beside him as he prepared breakfast, chattering in broken Kalathi mixed with gestures. He didn't understand a word, that much was obvious from his confused smiles, but he listened as though she spoke profound wisdom. "And then the ship went boom," Zara gestured wildly. "So big! But you found me." Darren nodded, his expression soft. "I'm glad I did." The words were wrong, but his tone carried meaning enough. He handed Zara a heated meal pack, showing her how to open it, his movements patient and gentle. When she burned her finger on the hot seal, he immediately produced a small medical kit, cooling the minor burn with practiced efficiency. "All better?" he asked. Zara tested her finger, then beamed. "Better." Vera's chest tightened with something she didn't want to name. In 30 hours, she'd contacted the nearest Kalathi outpost, but rescue would take 4 days. 4 days of traveling through hostile terrain with injuries that slowed her significantly. 4 days of depending on a human stranger who should want them dead or captured. Instead, he was teaching Zara a hand-clapping game. "You're staring." Darren's voice made her start. He wasn't looking at her, still focused on Zara, but amusement colored his tone. Vera sat up slowly, armor plates in her uniform restricting the movement, "Wondering when you'll demand payment for your hospitality." "Payment?" Now he did look at her, confusion genuine. "For what? Basic decency?" "Nothing is free." "Then consider it an investment in not being an asshole." He shrugged. "We're all just trying to survive out here. Species doesn't change that." Before Vera could respond, Zara tugged Darren's sleeve and pointed at the canyon ahead. "We go there?" "That's right. There's a research station 3 days north. They'll have better medical supplies and communications equipment." 3 days, Vera repeated. "You'd travel 3 days out of your way for us? You're going that direction anyway, right? Toward Kalathi space?" When she nodded stiffly, he smiled. "Then it's not out of my way." The logic was sound, but Vera's training screamed warnings. Humans were expansionist, aggressive, territorial. They didn't help enemy species without ulterior motives. Yet, watching Darren hoist our packs, then crouch so Zara could climb onto his back for the difficult terrain ahead, Vera found her certainty wavering. "I can walk," she protested weakly. "I know, but I'm bigger, so I should carry the heavy stuff. You're definitely the heaviest thing here." Zara giggled, and even Vera's lips twitched. Perhaps humans aren't all the same. Perhaps this one was dangerously different.
The storm hit on their second day, turning the canyon into a howling nightmare of wind and ice. Darren had pushed them hard to reach the cave system he'd marked on his scanner, arriving just as the first crystalline hail began to fall, each piece sharp enough to cut exposed skin. Inside, Vera collapsed against the stone wall, breathing hard. Her ribs screamed with each inhale, and the cold made her shoulder wound ache deeply. Zara huddled against her, shivering despite the thermal blankets. "Fire," Darren announced, already gathering the dead brush that had blown into the cave entrance. "Give me 10 minutes." Vera wanted to argue that fire would give away their position, that someone could be tracking them, but Zara's orange skin had gone pale again, and the child's teeth chattered audibly. Survival trumped paranoia. True to his word, Darren had flames dancing within minutes. He'd built the fire expertly, angling it to throw heat deep into the cave while minimizing smoke. Then he did something that made Vera's breath catch. He gave Zara his own thermal blanket, leaving himself with only his uniform jacket. "You'll freeze," Vera protested. "I'll be fine. I'm moving around more." He was already heating water for tea, movements efficient despite the cold. Besides, she needs it more. "Why?" The word escaped before Vera could stop it. "Why do you care so much about a child you don't know, from a species you've never met?" Darren was quiet for a moment, tending the fire. Outside, the storm raged. "When I was 8, my colony was hit by raiders, bad ones. My parents hid me in a supply closet before—" He trailed off. "I was there for 2 days before rescue came. Alone, terrified, sure I was going to die." His jaw tightened. "A soldier found me. Could have just marked my location and moved on. She had a mission, other priorities. But she stayed. Held my hand, told me stories, shared her rations. Probably saved my life. Definitely saved my sanity." He looked up, meeting Vera's eyes across the fire. "She told me that the measure of a person isn't what they do when it benefits them. It's what they do when no one's watching, when there's no reward, when helping costs you something." Thunder cracked overhead, and Zara whimpered. Without hesitation, Darren moved to sit beside her, letting her lean against his side. He started humming, a soft, rhythmic melody that seemed to calm the child. Vera watched them, this human soldier and Kalathi child, and felt something crack in her chest. Her people had taught her that humans were dangerous, selfish, unable to see past their own species. Every briefing, every report, every warning had painted them as enemies. But enemies didn't give away their last warm blanket. Enemies didn't hum lullabies to frighten children. Enemies didn't risk themselves for no gain. We say, in Kalathi, that souls show their color in darkness. Yours, she struggled for words. Yours shines, Darren Reeves. He looked surprised, almost embarrassed. I'm just doing what anyone should do. But most don't. Vera pulled her own blanket tighter. Most wouldn't. The storm howled on, but inside the cave, warmth grew that had nothing to do with the fire. Zara fell asleep against Darren's shoulder, her breathing steady and peaceful. He didn't move, didn't shift her weight, just kept humming that gentle melody. And Vera watched them, this human soldier and Kalathi child, and felt something crack in her chest. Her warrior's heart beating with a rhythm she'd never felt before, one that scared her more than any battle. The research station appeared on the third day, its lights a beacon against a barren landscape. Vera felt relief war with unexpected disappointment. Here their journey would end. The Kalathi rescue ship would arrive tomorrow. She and Zara would return home. And Darren would become a memory. Finally! Zara bounced excitedly despite her exhaustion. Real food and beds. And a proper medical bay for your stubborn guardian, Darren added, glancing at Vera with concern. She'd been hiding the pain, but he'd noticed her movements becoming more labored, her breathing shallower. The station crew greeted them with surprise. A human with 2 Kalathi wasn't something they encountered daily, but Darren's credentials checked out, and within an hour, Vera found herself in a medical pod while scanners assessed her injuries. Zara sat nearby, finally clean and fed, wearing station clothes that hung comically large on her small frame. Fractured ribs healing incorrectly, internal bleeding, minor but persistent. Infection beginning in shoulder wound. Recommend immediate treatment. Vera closed her eyes. She'd been worse off than she had admitted, pushing through on sheer will. If they'd traveled alone, you would have died, Darren's voice came from the doorway. He'd cleaned up too, his dark hair still damp from the shower. Another day, maybe 2,
and that infection would have spread too far. I would have managed. Like hell. But his words held no anger, only tired relief. You're as stubborn as Zara said. Despite herself, Vera smiled. She told you that? Among other things, she also said you're the bravest person she knows, that you've protected her since her parents died, that you chose to be her guardian when no one else would. Warmth flooded Vera's chest. She's special, worth protecting. So are you. The words hung in the air between them. Vera met his eyes, those human eyes that had shown her nothing but kindness, nothing but compassion. Eyes that looked at her not as an alien, not as an enemy, but as someone who mattered. I was wrong about humans, about you. I expected cruelty, and I found something I didn't know existed. Darren's expression softened. What's that? Someone who would risk everything for strangers, who sees a frightened child and thinks only of her safety, who gives his last blanket, his food, his warmth, and asks nothing in return. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. Someone who makes me believe the galaxy might be kinder than I thought. Vera? He stepped closer, then hesitated. Your people in mind, we don't have the best history. No, but perhaps we could start a new one person at a time. The medical bay door burst open, and Zara ran in, waving a datapad. Vera, I told Rescue about Darren. They want to meet him. They say maybe humans and Kalathi can be friends after all. She launched herself at both of them, forcing a group embrace that made Vera's ribs protest. But she didn't care. Neither did Darren, who laughed and held them both carefully. Friends, Vera repeated, looking at Darren over Zara's blonde head. Perhaps something more. His smile was answer enough. Outside, stars wheeled overhead, cold and distant. But in the medical bay, warmth bloomed, born from mercy, grown through sacrifice, and now blossoming into something neither human nor Kalathi had words for. Something that felt remarkably like hope.